Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're going to try and crack a code. Not just any code, but the invisible languages that pretty much run our world. And it all starts with this really strange collection of documents. They seem totally random, but trust me, there's a connection here you probably won't see coming.
Okay, so let's dive in. Our puzzle kicks off with 4 documents that, on the surface, look like they have absolutely nothing to do with each other. They're from completely different worlds.
All right, first up, we've got a page straight out of a 1920s radio experimenter's manual. I mean, look at it. It's all about precision, electrical resonance, how to effectively transfer energy. It's basically a technical code, a set of rules for controlling signals.
And then, on the complete other end of the spectrum, we've got this modern philosophical text. This one isn't talking about circuits, it's all about consciousness. The whole idea here is that words themselves are powerful enough to literally shape our reality. So you can see it's a totally different kind of code.
Then you have this, a Department of Justice memo. And what's the first thing you notice? All those black bars, right? The most important information is just gone. It's hidden, replaced by these legal codes like B5 per OLC. So in this case, language isn't being used to reveal information, it's being used to hide it.
And finally, there's this single line from a crime archive. It's so stark. It takes this huge human tragedy, a life, a death, and just boils it down to a systematic, categorized entry. This is the code of bureaucracy, cold and efficient.
So, a radio manual, a spiritual text, a blacked-out memo, and a crime log. What could they possibly have in common? They seem like they're from different planets, don't they? But what if I told you they're all using a shared, hidden language? A language designed to structure our world.
Okay, so how on earth are these things connected? Well, the link starts to appear when you look at the fundamental way our world is put together.
You know, when you think about it, every complex system, I'm talking everything from national security all the way down to your local library, it's all built on one thing: controlling information. The goal is always the same: maintain order, make sure things are confidential, and control who gets access.
And this is where it gets really interesting. Just look at the parallel here. On the left, you've got a radio engineer using a super precise formula to control the flow of energy. And on the right, you have a lawyer using a super precise rule to control the flow of information. See? Different fields, but it's the exact same logic. A code designed to produce a specific, controlled outcome.
So, all these codes, whether they're formulas, legal rules, or bureaucratic procedures, they really do form the invisible architecture of our society. They're there to manage chaos and create systems that are predictable. But, and this is a big but, that very predictability often comes at a price. It can push the human element right out of the picture.
And that brings us to a really critical question, maybe the most important one. What happens to the actual human being who has to live inside these vast, impersonal systems?
Because this is what happens. This is what it looks like when raw, human experience slams into the cold language of a system. A feeling of hell on earth. You can't file that away. You can't just reduce it to a case number.
I mean, just look at this timeline. It shows the real human cost of this kind of systemic language. For the system, this is a legal question about deliberate indifference that just slowly unfolds over years. But for the person right at the center of it, it's a 15-year nightmare of suffering. It's a life put on hold by procedure and delay.
And it goes even deeper. Even the words we use to define people inside these systems are so carefully chosen. Victim, for example, isn't just a description. It's a legal status with a specific meaning. But that label might not capture how a person actually sees themselves. So you get this constant conflict between the system's code and a person's real identity. Sometimes the impact of this system can only really be understood through a single, staggering number like this one. This isn't just money on a page, right? This is a life-altering judgment. It's a whole story of human consequence, told through the language of finance.
Okay, but what if there's another way to look at all this? Some of our sources suggest that these codes are more than just functional, that maybe there's something else entirely.
This is where some of our sources propose a pretty radical idea, that to really understand the system, you have to look at its glitches, its mistakes, its contradictions. The idea is that the real truth isn't in the official story they're telling you, but it's actually hidden inside the errors.
And that leads us to this fascinating concept of legal fiction. It's this idea that there's a difference between you, the living, breathing person, and your legal identity, the person that exists on paper.
For instance, some people argue that when your name is written in all capital letters on a document, that doesn't represent you, the individual. Instead, it represents a separate legal entity, one that's subject to a totally different set of rules.
And you can actually see hints of this in practice. Just notice how names are recorded differently across different documents. The argument here is that the system's very specific use of language creates this kind of paper reality, turning a person into a legal construct that's, well, just easier to manage and control.
This line of thinking takes us one giant step further, and it connects right back to that philosophical text we saw at the very beginning. It suggests that these systems we've been looking at, the technical, the legal, the financial, they aren't just objective realities floating out there. No, they are powerful stories we're told, ideas that we all collectively agree to believe in, which in turn shape our entire perception of the world.
And when you look at it that way, suddenly a pattern just jumps out across all those documents we started with. Keywords like code, signal, and law. They start appearing in every single context, and that is the hidden thread. That's what connects the radio manual to the legal memo and the crime log to the philosophical text. They are all in their own way describing systems of control. They're just using different dialects to do it.
So where does that leave us? All of this brings us to a really profound question about our own place in this massive, coded structure we call society.
So let's recap. We've seen how codes control everything from radio waves to legal rights. We've even gone down the rabbit hole and explored the idea that these codes aren't just rules, they're the very stories that construct our reality.
Which really leaves us with one final, crucial question. If our world truly runs on these codes, are we just characters living inside a story that someone else wrote? Or can we learn the language, crack the code, and become the authors of our own story?